I'm your host, Sheldon Alexander, and it's feeling pretty good on this Monday morning as we are still on a wave on the pod. Our Thursday pod, we went 5-3 against the spread. Adding it all up, that's 19-11 against the spread in the play-in and playoffs combined. 31-15-1 against the spread in our NBA picks given out on this pod. We'll do that again every time there's a pod during the playoffs. We're going to go through each and every series and give you a pick for that next game. We're on a wave right now, just trying to keep the wave going. That said, the Mavs and Jazz series evened up at 2 after the Jazz win 199 on an alley-oop from Donovan Mitchell to Rudy Gobert. What a strange series. Jazz were favored by 5 in game 4. Now we're heading back game 5 in Dallas. Mavs favored by 3. And a guy named Luka Doncic came back and played, and the Mavs lost. So it's a very weird series indeed, but Dallas favored by 3 heading back home. I'm going to be on the Mavs. And the reason I'm going to be on the Mavs is I just think, with Luka coming back, like sometimes we forget how we talk about these games in terms of like either they're robots or we're talking about numbers, but these are like human beings, right? So like the mentality of Luka's not there, here's how I have to play. And then a sense of, oh, Luka's back. And we all kind of relax a little, even though it's not Luka. Even though there were some signs of there goes that man, to quote Mark Jackson, but still takes a little bit to kind of get back into sync and know what Luka can and cannot do. Either way, though, I'm on the Mavs at home -3. I feel like I'm on every favorite, which is not really a thing that I'm normally on, but I'm trying to separate it because obviously not all of these things are connected, so to speak. But I'm on the Mavs. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And listen, I spent a lot of the series kicking myself about this because you've been listening to this podcast, right from the jump. I was like, why can't the Mavericks beat this Jazz team? Now, the game 3, speaking of setups, right? Like was set up perfectly for the Jazz to win because, the Mavs get that for one of the first 2 games, as weird as it is to say, right? They get the split at home that they would have been content with. And then they go on the road, and in game 3, right? Like they're like, oh, we don't need to bring Luka back here. And that's a perfect situation for the Jazz to win and cover. And they just do the absolute opposite. And you make a great point because that's what that first half of game 4 was, right? Luka comes back and like, okay, everything's fine. And Jalen Brunson becomes a little less assertive, right? And a little more deferential to Luka Doncic. And then they go, okay, you know what? We're getting smoked here. We need to get back to what we were doing in this series. That, by the way, even if you look back at game 1, the Jazz covered, but it literally was 4 missed shots in the last minute by the Mavs at home, that even with that sort of secondary character, Mavs lineup, you got to make one of those shots. And if they make one of those shots, maybe they win, maybe they don't, but they certainly cover this 5.5 from game 1. And then other than that, even including game 4 where they lose, right? They obviously came back, took the lead, thought they might have, yet another victory. And I was sitting there, I had the Mavs +6, and here's why. And here's why I can be sort of okay with that, on the sort of understanding that, you and I talk about how to make lines in the market and all of that stuff. Okay, let's do this quick rundown here, right? Without Luka at home, Mavs +5.5 in those games at home, right? Then they go on the road and the line basically doesn't change. It goes from 6. I bet it at 6. I talked about this on Friday. It loses in game 3. That line closed 8.5. So it's a little bit different. The 2 bets that I lost basically all weekend of, I think, at 5 or 6 of these games. One of them, I got 2.5 points closing line value. Now, if you go around in the betting space, people love their closing line value, right? So I look at that and I go, okay, I made that bet. I'm going to blame the Jazz, but with that more than I am going to bet, more than I'm going to blame myself. And then game 4 comes around and the line is still like 6, even though Luka is back. And so it's like a 2-point adjustment from the close, but we just saw earlier on in the week that this should be a 9-point adjustment, right? That's the thing about those first 2 games where we go, with Luka, the Mavs should be about a 3.5-point favorite at home. And they were 5.5 underdogs. So that's a 9-point adjustment. You're going to tell me from games 3 to game 4 with Luka in the lineup, even though not healthy, maybe, even more out of shape than maybe he's been accused of even at the best of times. You're going to tell me that it's only a 2-point adjustment. What happened to the 9 points from before? Like, what are we talking about here? So even just, if you've been, if you're betting for sort of any length of time, sort of analyzing lines, you have to go, it's not rocket science. You go with Luka, without Luka, 2-point difference in the line. Well, like that can't be the correct adjustment, especially since what we saw in games 1 and 2 was a pretty significant adjustment, and one that wasn't particularly incorrect based on sort of how those games played out. And so I look at this and I go, okay, now we're adjusting here back again from a 6-point line to 3.5. Now that's a 9.5-point adjustment, but 6-7 of those points are for home court. And so we're back to just what, a 2.5 to 3-point adjustment for Luka being back. That's still really short from where you specifically, but where the odds makers were trying to tell us what the adjustment should have been for games 1 and game 2. So I think this line is short. And the crazy thing is it's come down, which always makes me nervous because this is 3.5. Now it's down to 3. And so I'm watching that game the other night and I'm cheering is obviously a stretch because I barely blink when I'm watching these games. But when I see that the Mavs lose and a series goes 2-2, I go, okay, I'm fine with that because now I can get in on a Mavs series price that's actually reasonable. Now I look at the Mavs series price and it's -135. Well, the money line for game 5 is like -150. The spread is only 3 points. And so I just look at that and I go, well, if I'm going to bet the series price, like I'm going to need them to win game 5, right? Like those two things are pretty hand in hand. Now, yeah, there's a possibility the Mavs only win by 1 or only win by 2, and I end up losing a -3 here. But I'd rather just bet the -3 at -110 than the money line at -155 or the series price at -135 when I would need 2 victories somewhere along the way here. So yeah, I'm just going to bet the Mavs in this series, or I'm going to bet the Mavs, game by game in this series. I'm going to bet the Mavs -3 in game 5. Tell you right now, I'm going to bet them, plus, again, is it going to be 6 again? That seems high for games back in Utah, but I'll be betting them again in game 6. And if we need to, I'll be betting them again because now we know that a game 7 is probably going to be something like -3, -3.5. It's going to be a fair price, something that we thought we would get, before this whole Luka Doncic injury fiasco sort of happened here. So yeah, we're down here to 3 games potentially, maybe 2. And listen, if the Jazz win both those games and end up covering both those games and we lose 2 bets, I am fine with making that bet. It's just not something I think is going to happen here. So give me the Mavs in this game.